don't exist, apparently. But I will after this session.
Yes.
So today we want to talk about teardowns. And if you're thinking, what the heck is a teardown? Let me break it down for you. A teardown is where you look at a page. A lot of people do their copy this way, maybe some of you do. You look at a page, you analyze the messaging on the spot, you come up with some best practices, some ideas to change it, and then you go ahead and do that. So if you've watched page fights, and both Joanna and Pep have been on page fights, you've watched a teardown. And people love watching teardowns because there's a certain degree of schadenfreude, because if you see a truly terrible site, you can go away knowing at least we're not that bad.
I want to let you just keep going.
Yeah,
You're
no,
like super
you can just do
passionate
the whole
about this.
talk.
Wow. Holy.
If you want to get fancy, you can call it a heuristic analysis, but we don't need to get fancy.
And if you want to make money, you can bill lots of money for it and call it an audit.
That's right. Yeah, so we are going to do a teardown today with a very courageous company called Vertical Response. They agreed to be the site that we tear down, and we're looking fully at copy. So we're not talking about design, we're not talking about the other elements, although they all work together. That's not what we're going to talk about in our teardown. We're going to focus entirely on the words, on the message, on what you say and how you say it. So we're going to switch over to the live site, which might take a second. Didn't take long at all. That is awesome. Okay, so this is verticalresponse.com, and we're just going to start tearing it down. I'm going to jump right in. So first thing, headline. Headline is a huge opportunity. I know there's a lot of work a headline has to do, but this is purely a keyword phrase, right? This is not doing anything more than pleasing search engines, which is, they're an important thing to please, but it's your headline. Like, your headline is your entire opportunity to grab attention and pull people in, and they're leading with email and social media marketing.
Yep, it's not tapping into any sort of deeper need, desire, what is it really solving? It tells us what it does, but that's not that compelling. Also, the fact that we don't really know exactly who this is for. So is it just for young women who hang out with cats? Is it for small businesses?
People too.
Okay, yeah, I got dogs, it's all right.
But yeah, no, and it's true. And some of the early questions we ask as copywriters when we arrive on a site and start tearing down the copy is like, the number one thing is, who is this for, right? We've learned about that all day doing that research. And as far as we can tell, this is for a young woman working from home, or young people clearly working from what appears to be a home office, unless she has her cat at the office, which would be an amazing office, but that might not be the case. So we look at that and we compare that to the copy. Is that the message that we're getting on the page, that this product is right for that audience? And so far, we're not really getting a feel for anything. Do we want to scroll down?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can we scroll a bit? It's okay, so we're still looking. Go ahead, Joel.
So now we get into some of the meat and the detail. And we've got this image that's immediately distracting, pulling you away from the copy. You'll notice it's kind of moving. But then we've got what looks like the first promise on the page, and that is create professional emails in minutes. So whoever put this together is assuming that a pain point for the audience is needing to look professional and that they've got a time crunch. They want to do it in minutes. Then we get into choose one of our customizable templates and make your own with our easy drag and drop editor. So we're starting to delve into the features. But
we're doing it in a wall of text while we're at it, right? There are, 7 lines there with multiple sentences inside of it. That's a lot for a person to take in. So chances of them actually getting beyond choose one of our are like extraordinarily rare anyway. And it kind of even misreads, which is a little, I don't know if it's the font or what, but it looks like choose one of 4. I read choose one of 4. That might be me, but that sounds a little limiting. Anyway, that was my feedback on that point. And I interrupted you.
no, that's okay.
Well,
I'm interrupted.
No,
That's
that's
what I
great. And
do.
just a quick thing, we weren't able to do anything with this going on here, this moving thing, so that creates some cognitive overload, which is a bit
That
distracting.
your eye is pulled away from the copy towards the moving image, right, towards the GIF or GIF or whatever we call it.
So let's keep moving down the page.
Yeah, can we scroll?
Got another very similar section. So I think maybe we will just jump over it.
Yes. Well, and the question then is, do other people just jump over it too, right? Is it just us reviewing the copy, or as they go down the page and see the same thing again and again, if you weren't pulled in the first time, will you put yourself through reading it the second time, the third time, the fourth time?
The other thing I want to quickly point out is some of you may not have even noticed what we call the eyebrow copy. So that's that orange text there. So we've got the big text. That's what's immediately drawing my eye in. In some cases, it's not even until later I go back up to validate that I read that. So if they're betting the farm on me reading that eyebrow copy to see a key benefit or a key point, I may miss that altogether because I want to keep reading down.
And again, that looks like for SEO purposes. So,
yeah. So can we keep going? Okay, so we get to a new section where they're clearly trying to communicate something. What could that be? Free. So they have a free product. Good. Table stakes, though. It's kind of expected in email land that there's going to be a free option. One, a free trial, which I think right away for me this reads as a free trial. It doesn't say that it's not just a free trial. It only says free, and then you have to read no credit card, no time limit, which starts to get blurred out anyway. But in fact, this is an actual free solution you could use eternally if your list didn't grow over that 4,000 emails.
Right.
But the message is pretty clear, at least, right? We can at least take away that there's something free here, and if free matters to you, which it does to a lot of people, cool, it's well communicated. Anything
keep
to add?
scrolling. Yeah.
Yeah? Moving down? Another section.
Another feature, basically.
So a lot, right? And we can look at the copy itself, and the copy isn't like offensive, right? Like there's nothing we can say when we look at that copy where it'd be like, oh, that's absolutely the wrong thing to say. But there's nothing sticky either. There's nothing that I can walk away with and say, oh, this is what they do differently. This is why I should care about using vertical response and try it instead of the many other email platforms that we can all, any small business owner at least, could very quickly list off because they're all being marketed to small business owners. So I get down this far on the page, and do I know yet what vertical response does differently?
Right, there's no
Better?
differentiator.
I have no idea. We can move down further, maybe see if there's something else. Okay, they're here to help me market my business.
Right.
I don't believe that. 14 years, 1 million customers, good social proof. Help, that's actually interesting, but it's buried way down below. They've got 7 days a week where you can call, chat, or email to get help. Now I have to click to see what that really means, and of course immediately I think, well, I have to pay to upgrade to get the call or the chat, so it's maybe not helping as much as it could, but it is a starting point, and it's buried here.
Right. And
Down
so then,
more. Do you have something to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to say the next section is just social proof, but it's not very compelling social proof.
Well, as social proof, so a lot of times we think about social proof as just like, oh, here, put some testimonials here, or put some logos here, which we see at the top of like in most SaaS products, they have like the banner of logos of people who use it or people who write about it. This is the same kind of thing. Like it's just floating social proof, and you don't really know what it's proving. Like everything on the page is expressing a message, and I'm not quite sure what the message is outside of other people use this, but is this the best use of testimonials that are saying real things, that are actually trying to communicate real value in ways that are far more credible than any copy you'll ever write? And they're just kind of like lumped together.
They're
here.
scattered, and then the subhead is all about me. It's all about the company itself. You know, it's not you-centered. So
There's
that's a
also,
little bit of turn-off.
Other than the logos, if you look at the testimonials, there's virtually nothing that distinguishes the points that are being made. So I rely on social media and email marketing to keep my clients up to date. Well, so does a big business,
Right.
so does a not-for-profit. So you've just heard Angie talking about social proof. These are not specific claims. These are not claims that speak to a specific pain point or benefit. So they really just kind of exist. They've got headshots, which add some credibility, but they're not really saying anything.
Right. So if we scroll the rest of the way, I think we're just about there
Done.
on this one. Yes, you mentioned it's free. And then a couple more opt-in, like other distractors here, right? Although a phone number is an interesting thing. But yeah, this goal clearly competes with the other goal. And I know people find like comfort as marketers in putting that opt-in on the page, but it is a competing goal. I mean, we can see it's clearly in competition with the big button above it. Doesn't mean it's going to win, but it gives people a distraction, and we don't want to distract them from the goal of the page, ideally, ever. And then down to the footer where there's a whole bunch of stuff.
To get distracted.
So can we go back to the deck? So with all of that in mind, we decided, okay, well, we do copy for a living, right? We've all been writing copy for a long time, and we're actually in a group of other copywriters that we decided we'd pair up, actually group up. There were about 16 of us that worked together. 16? Something like that. There were a lot of copywriters that worked together.
We made teams. We made it competitive.
We did. We decided, okay, well, if we're going to tear it down, we're going to have these big opinions, like let's build it back, let's rebuild based on what we just said. So we decided to draft some new variations, and we decided to test those. Vertical Response was in on testing this, 3 different variations against the control. So we're going to show those to you now and pay attention to them. Can you switch over? Cool. Joel.
All right, so this was the variation that my team put together. And to give you some of the rationale behind it, I wanted to go off some of the social proof, but we didn't have a lot to work with. So a best practice that I'd seen work with other companies that I've worked with was to invent a quote and put it at the top. Heuristic is if we see something in quotes, we assume somebody actually said that. So the easiest email marketing platform ever. Now, I don't attribute it to anyone, but if you saw that out in the wild, you might think, okay, well, who's saying that? At least capture interest. Then we didn't change too much with that initial subhead. But where I made the biggest change on my variation, if you can scroll down just a little bit, I'd like to introduce you to Sildy, the Screw It, Let's Do It section. So I assume that people like me, when they come into email marketing, are on a bit of a time crunch. They just want to know what it can do for them. They've heard somewhere that they need to set up email, get emails out, build their list. So I wanted to give people everything that they wanted to know in as short a time as possible. So I introduced this section, short bullet points, and my goal was to get them to go, yep, got everything, and head right back up to start sending emails free. If we can scroll down just a little bit more. So we changed the eyebrow copy to be a little less crucial, but still add some context to the overall message. So quick to create, but then honed in on our primary benefit, which was send gorgeous emails in minutes. You're on a time crunch, you can do this very quickly. No design skills, no problem. So again, appealing to that entry-level user who isn't that confident and just wants to get it done. If we can scroll a little bit more. And we'll skip that section too, just because we're on a bit of a tight timeline. Let's go down to where the free section was. So one more scroll. So before, they had kind of buried what I thought was the most important part of this section, which was up to 4,000 emails and 1,000 people on your list. It was buried between the giant free badge. So I thought, let's move that over and say, we're going to give you 4,000 good reasons to get started, again, right now, immediacy. So send up to 4,000 emails to 1,000 contacts every month for free. That was the big offer. That was the area that we zoned in on.
Cool. Let's switch over to the next tab. Okay, this one's the one that my team worked on, and so I believe in having at least one, not at least, only one big idea on the page. That's the thing that makes people care. Why should I be here? Why should I care? So we were like, okay, well, the headline clearly had room to improve, so we decided to go with a big idea. For us, it was a bit risky because we work with a lot of small businesses, and we know that growth isn't always their objective. Sometimes they just want to stay where they are and keep making money. But we're like, let's see, right? Let's see if that's actually true. It could be a really good promise, or at least a good big idea, to say this is how small businesses become big businesses. And then we wanted to talk more specifically, give them real scenarios in which they could imagine their lives being improved by the product. So we were like, by sending a single email with vertical response, you could fill your schedule with clients or your store with customers in a click. And we want to say with vertical response in there because the same could absolutely be said about any other email marketing platform. So we're trying to dig a bit deeper, like to make it at least appear that there's a clear differentiator, or at least tie that to those ideas to the vertical response brand. If you want to just scroll, we'll go really quickly through this. We decided with the crossheads that we have here to lead with a so-called power word, which is because. So we put that at the start of every single crosshead that we had. So that one, and then moving down the page, as you can see, we didn't change anything with the design otherwise, just moving through that. Can we scroll a bit more? Because, and then this outcome, this great benefit that you'll have, moving down because growing your audience should be fun. So again, we were assuming here, if they're actually targeting younger women, particularly, or at least younger entrepreneurs, people working from home, might they think that business should be a little more fun than that email marketing should be fun. And then we went into free, didn't do too much differently there, but did try to focus on the fact that you can send 4,000 emails a month for $0. And that really takes us to the bottom where we chopped it up a bit and cut out a whole bunch of the stuff that was really distracting down below. Do you want to switch to the next?
Yeah. So with our team, basically one of the big things that we were sort of struggling with, which I think the other two were struggling with, was, what's the differentiator? And since we weren't entirely sure, we wanted to tap into a little bit of a deeper need, a deeper desire. And I think for a lot of small business owners, it's about ease of use, but it's also about how this tool is going to make you look maybe more professional than you are at that point. And so that's why we went with this headline, so it'll make you look like a pro, but it's really easy to use. And then wanted to put at the top, built for small business, because to me it wasn't clear exactly who this was for. And they do really target small business. If you can scroll down a little bit. And then, hold on right there. And then what I wanted to do was, we wanted to put that trusted by 1 million+ customers for more than a decade. So people sort of felt like, wow, this is not just some fly-by-night company. They've actually been doing this for quite a while. Some form, not really social proof, but just authority. And then, we don't have to go through all of them, but these points, I got rid of the eyebrow copy because I thought that was a little bit distracting. But then we just talked about the features more within the context of the benefits that they provided. And then if you keep going down, we did mostly the same thing with the free section, just highlighting it and bullet pointing it, making it a little bit easier to read. And then, the rest was, if you go quickly, just here kind of making more of a promise and then telling people more about what they were actually getting. And that was it.
Yeah. Can we switch back to the deck? Thank you. Okay, so with that in mind, we decided to test all of those, and now your job is to vote for the winner. So you saw the rationale, you saw what went into this. We did a teardown of the copy, and then we rewrote. So you tell us by clapping which one you think won. You ready? I know it's end of day and you've been drinking already, but let's clap if you feel
clap
for
loud.
it. All right, so the control. Who believes control won? Who believes Team Jen? Give Jen some love. Team Joanna. Come on, really? That's it? Or Team Joel? No, there's a bias there. There's some sort of bias there, I'm sure of it. Okay, the winner was nobody.
None of us won.
Completely flat. So we're like, what the hell, right? This is what we do. This is what we do for a living. We write copy, and everybody, all those other copywriters that worked with us, also write copy for a living. So we're like, okay, well, let's just try it again, right? Let's just do another one. They're up for it, so we were like, let's go. So along the same lines, we decided to test while thinking about their core competitor, their key competitor, which is MailChimp. MailChimp has this extremely tiny little homepage, and we compared that to vertical responses. It's quite a difference. So we came up with a new variation. This is, of course, the control, and this is the new variation. Between those two, which one do you think won? setting you up here.
So control.
Anybody for control?
Nobody likes the control.
Nobody likes
That
control.
sassy cat. All right, thank
Anybody
you.
for our variation B? Everybody's like
all
totally
a little less
done by now.
confident.
They're like, oh, I don't trust anything you say. Again, no winner.
You were right.
In fact, we came really close to a big loser on that, but it never actually completed all the way to significance, but little chance it was going to recover. So what can we take away from that, right? What can we take away? There was actually a winner, and the winner was process. The winner showed us that we can't just attack a page and say, here's what we do with the copy. Just rewrite the headline this way. Just change your bullet points. Doesn't work. What works is research.
And I think it's important to point this out because a lot of us come to these conferences and we like to think that our process is intact, but then we look for tactics. A lot of the questions I've seen coming in are looking for concretes, absolutes, what works every time. But the problem is that tactics get the applause, right? The guy who comes and shares a bunch of tactics, people, oh, I've got great ideas, I'm going to go. But research gets the results.
Yeah.
So tactics get the applause, but the research is what's actually going to get the results, as unsexy as that concept might be.
Right, and we're actually kind of relieved to see them lose because if they'd won, then that would say actually kind of bad things about process. Like you
I
can
was
just guess.
excited. I was like, this is awesome. Pep is going to love this. He's going to be like, rock on. It
reinforcing
is
the
all about the
message.
research.
The research, which is not boring at all, which is the thing that gives us the insights we all need in order to run those really awesome tests, everything we've been learning about today. So we're going to talk you extremely quickly, given the time, through our favorite research. Jen, you are up first.
Okay, great.
Keep your mic going.
Which one do I just hit that?
Yeah, the play.
Okay. So anyway, one of my favorite things to do are surveys because they're easy to do and relatively quick. You know, particularly if you have a list. And so you can do two types, either by email or on-site pop-up. And surveys by email. I just wanted to go over quickly some tips and things that you can do with it. What I like to do is make sure that you're always surveying your most recent customers within the last 6 months so that you're getting people who have interacted with your product or solution recently. And you always want to think about segmenting your lists. So if you're sending out emails, it helps with the data gathering. It just makes it a lot easier to go through. Also, you're hitting people that are really appropriate that you want to get responses from. And you know, I love using tools like SurveyMonkey is quite good, Typeform is quite good. And part of why we do this as copywriters is we're looking for a voice of customer research. So doing open-ended questions are really important. Not to say that you can't ever do yes, no's or multiple choices, but you want to be getting real live people who are giving you actual words and phrases that you can use in your copy to find out their motivations, wants, concerns, that sort of thing. And then exit intent or on-site pop-up surveys are great where you can just ask one question, it pops up, you time it. And I love to use these to find out where there's a big friction point when people are leaving a checkout or leaving a sales page and you just can't figure out why, what's going on with that. And using tools like Hotjar or WebEngage, those are ones that work really well with that. And I wanted to show you this. This is just one that I used for a client, and it was a timed pop-up. And I think we had it on some of his course pages, just to get an idea of how aware these people were of these app development courses, to kind of get a sense of what their state of awareness was so that we could decide partly how much copy we needed to write and how much of an argument we needed to make. So that works really well for that. And then, like I had said, the exit intent pop-ups are great. This is one that we used on a page I'm going to show you just to find out why people were leaving without purchasing. And unfortunately, I can't give any results because we haven't hit significance yet, but so far the variant is doing great. But it's for examine.com, and they have a membership site, and they do these research reports for people, and they go through nutrition research, and they pull together all the information and give like a monthly report. And what we were finding was the fact that people needed to know things like rely on unbiased reviews. They needed to know it was easy to read and to follow, and that where they could access the subscription. Things like that, and changing the headline based on what people were saying in these surveys, along with, we don't have the whole page, but we needed to bring up the benefits immediately. Like, we were getting that kind of feedback from people. And so we were able to, make changes on the page based on that. And I also did some user testing, which was fantastic. And I'm going to give it over to Joanna, because she's going to talk about that, but that helped too.
Yes, awesome. So when we're looking for messages, which is where we swipe all of our copy from, our copy comes from the voice of the customer. So when we do these forms of research, one of my favorite ones is to use usertesting.com. So this is what, in the event that we were to do another test for vertical response, I put together a couple user tests on verticalresponse.com where we had just a few people come complete a couple tasks. And it's not that we're like taking everything they say and writing that down, but rather any feedback that they're giving, like any things that they're clearly bothered by, or if they're unable to figure out what's different about the product, or unique or things like that, we're paying attention to that sort of thing. So these are some tasks that we put people through, and these are some of the things that we wrote down while we were listening to the users go through this page in particular. A couple things that we wrote down, and I will walk you through what we would do with this sort of information, right? So the top ones all kind of speak to this need to identify what is different about vertical response, and then probably, maybe, to test messages that speak to that, and maybe for switchers in particular, because that came up. For one person, it's not anything that I would absolutely base a test on, but it's good data to work with when you're coming up with test ideas. Secondly, here are the templates. So when someone identified that, oh, these templates are really a lot nicer looking than any ones that I've seen before. And so we're like, well, maybe that's something that we can point to as something that's a little bit different. It was hard for me to appreciate that as a small business owner, because I don't use the template. So if I were to go through the copy and review their copy and not listen to other prospects or people who would be talking about what they're interested in, I would bring my own biases and say, oh, templates don't matter. Nobody even uses those anyway. But this person in particular pointed out that she does. So that's interesting to work with. Then a couple other things. Can we swipe this exact phrase that the woman said? Is that copy that could somehow be used? Because it's a little bit sticky, right? This whole pipeline phrase, is there anything to that? Someone really liked, she called them a movie, the animated GIFs. So maybe there's something there, because clearly on the page there was almost no product shot, and there were no real product shots. They were all animated. So what can we do with that? Could we replace the hero image with that? And a couple people pointed out that they really liked that you could call. So we thought, okay, well, maybe there's a reason then, of course, to elevate or make more prominent the phone number. Which brings us to Joel.
All right. Last tactic. Kind of the ugly duckling, so they got to talk about surveys, which are fun, and user testing, which is kind of sexy, and I get to talk about message mining, which sounds like it'll give you the black lung. But I'm going to whip through it because it's the most affordable, so if you use it right, any business can do this. So what is message mining? Well, message mining is scouring the web for reviews, testimonials, and unbiased discussions you can borrow from. So where do you get these? Well, obviously, testimonials and customer reviews. If you've got those internally, use them. Case studies, yours or your competitors. How do people talk about your competitors? What are they describing that's important in those case studies? How do they describe their experience? Forums and discussion boards. So where are people having candid conversations about your niche, your industry, even if it's not your own product? And you're looking for sticky copy. Comparison sites, Then video testimonials, which are like a gold mine that hardly anyone is tapping into because they're so versatile. And then social chatter for Twitter, so you can set triggers and alerts. But I want to caution you, when you're going through these, what these are really good for is getting sticky copy, looking for the ways people are talking about it, using their language, incorporating it into your headlines. I've got examples coming up. But what they are bad for, and you should not use them for, is trying to determine hierarchy. Just because people in forums are talking about a benefit or feature being really important to them does not mean that's the primary benefit or feature to put into your copy. To get a hierarchy, you have to do a survey. You have to make people rank things and force them into that structure. You can't do that with just message mining. So how do you go out and find all those wonderful things that I just described? Well, also free, no fancy tool, Google's advanced search operators. So your brand, your competitor brand, in URL, blog, forum, review, search for discussion or versus or recommend to compare, look for case studies, search for questions like which niche term, and look on specific sites like YouTube and Twitter. Then collect it and organize it. This is a simple framework, so the wants and the needs, the pain points, the hesitations and anxieties, just copy and paste that text. So I've got some examples of that, but I'm going to whip through it. So here's some quick examples. We had a testimonial that said, keeps our outside employees honest. We thought that was really interesting, recurred a couple times, brought it right into ClockSpot's text and said, ClockSpot keeps everyone honest, so modified it. Then we found about ClockSpot, ClockSpot has made keeping track of employee time the easiest thing in this business. So we took that and we turned it into a headline that said, make time tracking and payroll the easiest parts of your job. That's powerful because people hate doing that stuff. Then video testimonials. We looked at the American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys. And he said out of his mouth, if there's a problem in my business, the Academy probably has a system to solve it. Well, guess what our new headline was? If your business has a problem, the Academy has a system to solve it. From the mouths of babes, your message comes. But, and this is the last point we're going to make, and I kind of alluded to it, never use any one of these things in isolation. Always triangulate. If you only do message mining and use that to develop your hierarchy, you're screwed because you don't know that that's the primary benefit. User testing is incredibly helpful, but you may not get the sticky copy that you're actually looking for. So do some message mining or do some surveys. And do surveys to get that hierarchy that we just talked about and ask really pointed questions, especially if you've already got an audience that you can draw from or you want to collect exit survey details like Jen was talking about.
And do it in conjunction with your quantitative research. Scary, but yeah, you know, so you've got to bring it all together.
Yeah, so summing up, I guess teardowns are fun, but they're not ultimately useful in crafting your messaging. And don't be the kind of CRO that looks for absolutes, the thing that's going to work all the time. Because remember, decision-making is about factors in conjunction. You can never just say, this type of headline works best. Draw an arrow, that's going to attract attention and work best. It's always about factors in conjunction. And unless you do the research, you can't possibly know that.
That's all. That's
it. Thank you guys so much for staying.